guys, and welcome to this new video. So today I'm going to be sharing with you the 9 books I read this past winter. So I've really been enjoying doing these kind of like seasonal reads videos where I kind of do it in each season, although the books are not, they don't really have anything to do with particular season that I'm in, but I just think it's fun to kind of share my recent reads and kind of discuss them with you. And if you're looking for something to read, maybe this will give you some inspiration. So I have up my Goodreads and we're just gonna go in order of what I read first to what I just finished. So the first book that I read this past winter time is The Tourist Attraction by Sarah Morgenthaler. I think that's how you pronounce it. But this book is about this girl who goes on a vacation to Alaska, and this is a dream trip for her. She is so excited to go, and then she meets this guy and he is very like anti-tourist. He hates when tourists come to his town because it's a small town in Alaska, and he has this restaurant that is very popular with the tourists. It's right by a resort, and so he gets all the tourists. He hates them, but they love him and his restaurant, and he's just very kind of grouchy, just kind of like a negative person. And she is just so excited to be there, so excited to be on this trip. It's a dream trip for her, and they kind of just see each other a lot and hang out a lot, and he makes a lot of excuses to be around her even though he hates tourists. So this book is part of a series. I personally did not enjoy it. I didn't find it enjoyable or interesting. It wasn't a page turner for me. The whole premise of the book, the summary, is pretty interesting. I love the setting, the fact that my friends and I chose to read it during the winter time for the setting of this novel, but unfortunately we didn't know, and it was supposed to be summertime in Alaska, so it would have been nicer if it was wintertime in Alaska, but that's probably also more on our part for not really knowing. We just saw Alaska and thought snow and cold. But the setting of this book was really nice. It's like in a cute small Alaskan town, but I don't know, just something about this writing. I think it's just the author. I didn't like her writing. I didn't find that I wanted to keep turning the page and wanting to find out what was happening next. I was just bored the whole time, and I kind of like also skimmed parts of it just because I was like, this is so boring. I don't really care. There was a lot of extra things mixed in the paragraphs that didn't need to be there. I think this book could have been 20 chapters like shorter if it wasn't for all like the randomness in this book. So I did not enjoy it. I know there's been 2 more books in this series. One's actually a Christmas book that I thought I would like and I thought would be really good to put into my like TBR list for this upcoming Christmas, but I will not be reading it because I didn't enjoy this book. So next, the second book I read is The Worst Best Man by Mia Sosa. So this book is about this girl who's a wedding planner, and it turns out that her former fiance left her at the altar. So he left her the day of her wedding. So his brother said something to him the night before the wedding, and that kind of made him realize he doesn't want to get married. It kind of switches back to present day. She is this wedding planner. She's really good at her job. She's just very career focused. Then it turns out she gets this job where she has to work with her ex-fiance and his brother, so her ex-brother-in-law. And so she happens to work very closely with her ex-brother-in-law, and it's just about them kind of getting to know each other and her hating him for ruining her wedding and them trying to learn how to work together while also somehow falling in love. This book was pretty good. It was enjoyable. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. It was a solid read, but it was just kind of boring also. I don't know if I think it was just the writing. The summary was interesting. It's definitely, like a hate to love chick lit book, and I would suggest reading it. It was a solid read, and I'd read another book by this particular author. I just thought that this one was a little flat. There was just something about it. I don't know. It was pretty flat for me. It's also been a while since I've read this to now when I'm filming. I would recommend it. I would not read it again. I would read another book by this author just to see. It could be like I don't like her writing, but I thought the premise of this book was really good, and if you like those hate to love books and you want something just kind of quick and easy, I would suggest this one. So the next book we read was just a short story. We read it after Christmas, although it is a Christmas book, but it is Booked for Christmas by Lily Menon. This book is about a girl who's an author, and she has this cabin in like the woods, and she throws this Christmas party, and one of her like reviewers who does not enjoy her books comes to this party. So it takes place over like a very short amount of time at Christmas, and they get snowed in her cabin together. Again, another hate to love book. book. I did not like this. I didn't like the writing. It was a short story, so it didn't take much to read, but I did not like the writing at all. The characters were kind of boring and annoying. I just felt like they had kind of like dumb answers to like hating each other. I just found it so boring. I didn't like it. I wouldn't read it. I wouldn't suggest it. There are definitely better Christmas books out there than this one. Fourth book on my list, and one that I actually enjoyed this time. It is How to Fail at Flirting by Denise Williams. So this is about a woman who she's a teacher at a university, and she just does not have luck in love. She is just coming out of an abusive relationship, and her friends are basically telling her, you know, we want the old Naya back, get back out there, we miss our old friend. And so this is just about her coming to terms with her abusive ex-boyfriend, finding herself also falling in love at the same time with someone who is the complete opposite and who's wonderful and amazing and great for her. So I really enjoyed this book. I thought the writing was really good, and it does touch on mental abuse. She was in a abusive relationship and it messed her up. She, you know, always goes back to it and is kind of like degraded. She degrades herself in her mind. Like whenever her new boyfriend does something, she always second guesses it and always kind of puts herself down because she's still in that mindset. She's definitely still trying to get back to her old self. I just thought this was well written, well done. It was at some points I thought a little too much, but also I have never been in a situation like that, so I can't really say if it's realistic or not. But just from things that you hear from survivors and all of that, it does sound pretty realistic to me. And there was just some really good parts in this book that deal with domestic abuse, finding yourself again after something terrible has happened to you, especially something as terrible as what the main character went through. I think this is such an amazing book, and if you can read stories like that, I would definitely pick it up. So next we have Paris is Always a Good Idea by Jen McKinley, and this is about a girl who lost her mother, and so again kind of another like finding yourself after a really horrible thing that happened in life. So she decides, you know, I am gonna go and try and like find my old self, and I'm gonna go and recreate this European trip that I went on right before my mother passed. So she starts off this trip thinking, I'm gonna go to this country and I'm gonna find the guy that I was in love with while I was there, and then I'm gonna, you know, be happy again. So she kind of hops from country to country searching out these men that she fell in love with while she was there, and she was there during college or right after college. I can't remember if it was a gap year or not, but she was young when she went, and of course she fell in love with all these guys when she was like country hopping. It's a good book. Writing was okay. I gave it like a 4 out of 5 stars. I would definitely recommend this. I think this is a great book for traveling. She goes from England, France to Italy. It's just kind of great. I remember like reading this book and remembering like my European vacation that I went on, just kind of wishing I was back there, making me nostalgic for traveling again. And so definitely if you love to travel, or if you are traveling, I would pick this book up and bring it along with you. So the next book is A Sweet Mess by JC Lee, and this is another hate to love book. And I've seen the pattern. I like hate to love chick lit books, but this is about a woman. She is a baker, and one of her employees messes up a food critic's order. So she gives him this cake that's meant for a 6-year-old's birthday party. So it has all these weird flavors and candy, and he writes a terrible review about her bakery, which hurts her business. And so to make it up to her, he gets her on this television show with one of his famous chef friends. I hated this book. I really did not like it. I did not think it was good at all. The writing was boring, story was boring, the reason they like hated each other was boring, plot twist was boring, and I feel like it was unnecessary. This whole book was just so boring. Like every character was like so dry and flat, and the writing wasn't that interesting. It didn't make me want to like turn the page and read what would happen next. I mean, I did also listen to this one on audiobook, but still I didn't like it. I really didn't like it. I really wanted to like it because I think books that also kind of incorporate food are really fun. Last year I read a book that kind of does the same thing, Kiss My Cupcake, but that one was really good. I really enjoyed that book, so I would not suggest reading it. There are way better food chick lit books out there, but if you're looking for more of like a romance book that deals with like bakery bakery and baked goods and all that, definitely read Kiss My Cupcake. That was so much better. So the next book we have on this list is one of my favorites that I've read so far this year, and it is Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson. I did mention this in my recent favorites video, which I'll leave a link to that down below. This book is about this girl who is 17 and she loves music. She loves to sing. She wants to get a record deal and record music, be a famous singer. And so she kind of tricks her mom into taking her to this audition in Manhattan, and she doesn't make the audition, but she catches the eye of one of these famous singers and music producers. He takes her under his wing and is like, oh, you have to come on tour with me. We can sing together and you open up for me. I'll have you record an album. And so of course she's like, yes, I want to do this. I'm gonna record an album. I'm gonna go on tour. This, singer that I really like and that my friends really like. And he's like texting her and like kind of grooming her. And then her parents end up allowing her to go on tour on her own. They're at home with her other siblings and working. He ends up abusing her. This book very much reminded me of the entire R. Kelly situation. I do believe this book was inspired by that, and it's just inspired in general by the music industry or the entertainment industry in general, and the very disgusting and horrific things that go on. This book was incredible. It was incredibly written. It is YA, and it did not feel like I was reading a YA book. It was interesting and it was definitely a page turner. It kind of flip-flopped back and forth between present day and the past of how things led up to the way they did. The book does open up with Enchanted, which is the main character, and she finds this music producer dead in his apartment. She finds like blood everywhere, all of this chaos, and she has no idea what happened. And so then you learn from there, you get backstory, and then leading up to the murder. It's such a good book. It was so moving and touching, and it really talked a lot about just sexual abuse, child predators, the music industry, and the disgusting things that go on in it, and also just how women and Black women just are not heard by the authorities when in these types of situations. It was so good. I felt like this was a book that you would read in high school for like summer reading and have to write a report on it, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. I listened to this on audiobook, and I will say the woman who read it was very good. I would highly recommend this. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. There were so many good parts and elements to it. Like, she is 17, 18 in the book. He like takes her to Disneyland. She gets excited over these things and he buys her like a flounder, and she always is referencing Ariel because Ariel like is, she sings and gets her voice taken away, and it's like in moments like that that you kind of realize like, oh crap, she's a literal baby and he is an old man, and he's doing things to her and these other women, stringing her along by saying, well, we're recording your album, right? Like, don't you want to be famous? Don't you want to have an album? Like, don't you want to be a famous singer? Don't you want to give money to your parents? Because her family's not rich. And he just keeps like using people that she loves, that he kind of separated her from, against her. And you're reading this and you want to like take Enchanted and shake her by the shoulders and just be like, this is not okay. Highly suggest it. If you mentally can read things like that and handle those topics, read this book. Next, we had another book that I absolutely loved, and it's Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. I've mentioned Christina Lauren so many times on my channel. They are my favorite authors. They're a writing duo. They write the most incredible books, and this is up there in like top 3 favorites of theirs so far. So this book is another one that kind of goes from past to present. So this book is about this girl, the main character. It starts off with, you find out her mother has passed. It's just her and her dad. Her mother writes this list of things that her dad should know on how to raise a girl, like a daughter. And so one of the things on the list, they end up buying a summer home as like a summer weekend retreat. Next door is this big family. She ends up becoming friends with one of the boys. They both love to read, and they both love to read. When they're younger, they kind of spend all of their days, weeks, however long that she's there, they spend all of their time reading. As they get older, they kind of fall for each other more, but then something happens where they stop talking to each other for like 10 years. And you start at the beginning where you find out her mother passed, and then you go to the present day where she sees him for the first time in like 10 years, and you don't know what happened, but it must have been pretty bad because she kind of has a pretty big panic attack seeing him, and it kind of strings you along with thinking, well, what happened? what's this big thing that happened, and you learn through the present and the past what happened. This tugged at my heartstrings so freaking much. I cried like a baby twice while reading this book. It is written beautifully because Christina Lauren, they just are amazing authors. This story was so heartwarming, also nostalgic too, just when they were younger and like certain things that happened with them with like high school and all of that. It's just like a really good book. I don't know what else to say about it except you need to read this. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to give away twist at the end, but it's just, you will cry, you will laugh. It was so good. So if you're looking for a good Christina Lauren book, I would definitely pick this one up. This is, like I said, one of my favorite Christina Lauren books now. I just really enjoyed it so much. I could not put it down. Definitely a page turner. So the last book I'm going to talk about is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and this book is really big on BookTube. I have found so many people talking about this book and it just made me want to read it. It has those, you know, old world Hollywood vibes, which I really enjoy. I will say it was kind of a letdown. I didn't enjoy it as much as I was hoping to enjoy it, or as much as I wanted to enjoy it, because everyone hypes it up so much. It just sounded really interesting, but I don't know, I couldn't connect with any of the characters. I kind of found them all mean and like deviant. Basically, this book is about this woman, Evelyn Hugo. She contacts this journalist and is like, I want you to write my biography. I'm gonna tell you and you're gonna write it, and when I die you're gonna publish this book all about my life and my secret. The book is told a biography format. It's Evelyn dictating her whole life. It kind of goes by husband because it talks about how she got into Hollywood, how she, like, who she married and all of the inner workings of everything, why she married them. And I will say there were certain things that were interesting about this book, like how she got some of her husbands and how she kind of like used them just for looks or married them just to get in a movie. And that's very much, I feel like, how it happened a lot in like the 50s and the 60s, like old world Hollywood. I definitely 100% believe, you know, women slept their way to the top, probably even a lot of men, and that was interesting to read. But just some of these characters I did not like at all. Like even Evelyn herself, I found I couldn't enjoy. I really hated the character of Celia. I wanted to like her, but I found that half the time she was just so unreasonable and annoying and just like couldn't understand the other side. And obviously the narrator is Evelyn, so you kind of know her part and her reasoning for doing things, and then Celia just comes in and is like, you're like, are you even thinking? Like, how do you not understand this? And maybe that's part like for the writing, I don't know. There was just something about this book I didn't enjoy. I gave it a 2 out of 5 stars. I don't think I'd recommend it. What I enjoyed the most about this book is the setting. I loved the old world Hollywood aspect, and I did hear a lot of people say that they're not a fan of Taylor Jenkins Reid writing. There is another book by her that I want to read, and I'm very curious now to read it and see if it's just maybe I don't like her writing. The concept of the book was really interesting. The kind of setting of it was interesting. The plot twist at the end I thought was very deviant, and it made me dislike Evelyn so much, but also not at the same time. Like, I understand why she did what she did, but it made me like hate her. The whole thing was a letdown, and I really wanted to enjoy this book. So that is it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. There were quite a lot of books that I didn't enjoy in this group, but the ones that I did enjoy, I really enjoyed. Definitely check out all of these books if you would like. I know I say like I wouldn't recommend it, but I don't know your taste, and something I might like you may actually like. So if you found any of these books interesting, I say just go for it and read it, but the ones that I really enjoyed, you should check out those first. So I will leave a list down below to all of the books. That's about it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Give it a big thumbs up if you did, subscribe if you're not already, and I will see you guys in my next video.